Hello and welcome to The Cosmic Nomad. I'm your host, Bailey Rushlow, and this is a space for the curious and the heart-led, where we explore the human experience through travel, nature, spirituality, and real-life transformation through beautiful conversations. As I discover my way of living what I call an inspired life, I share the practices, stories, and perspectives that have helped guide me back to myself. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of The Cosmic Nomad. I have quite the story for you today. It's gonna be whatever it is. I was gonna say it's gonna be very interesting, but I guess that's up to you. To me, it's very interesting, and there's a lot of layers, which is why I was never able to talk about this on just a post or a 90-second reel because of the layers. I need to be able to explain the complexity of everything that happened and what I experienced for several reasons. One, because it's my lived experience, and I think that's very interesting and holds a very specific frequency when it comes to sharing stories. I'm not telling you about something that happened to someone else some time long ago. Like, I lived through something very intense, probably my most intense experience of this life, or one of them at least. And I also want it to be kind of a cautionary tale for others to not make the mistakes that I did. And it's also a testament to the lives that we live and the stories we create and the narratives that we share, and how so often the places that we hold shame are the places that most need to be set free. And I don't particularly hold shame around this story at all, but I have held secrecy, which sometimes can feel the same as shame in the body. It's time to let this story be free, and I'm happy that you're here to hear it. I wish you could imagine that we were all just sitting around a fire, maybe making some s'mores, and I'm like, hey guys, I have this crazy story to tell you. And you're like, can't wait to hear it. Your stories are always the best. And I'm like, I know, right? So just imagine that we are, and let's get into it. This is not a light, feel good, encourage you to be the best version of yourself type of story. I'm just going to preface it with that, so that if that's something you're looking for today, I would love for you to check out one of my other podcast episodes. If you've listened to them all already, then maybe re-listen to your favorite one, or just go jam out to an awesome playlist on Spotify. This might be very raw and vulnerable and a little bit heavy at times, so if you are not in the right space to listen, come back when you are. I just want to preface it that it is a little bit of a heavier conversation, but it ends well, and I learned a lot through it, and I'm sharing all of that gold. So if you're in for a great story, again, sitting around the fire, then you're in the right place. In September 2024, I was put in jail in Indonesia because I flew into the country with a grinder for cannabis and a little bit of weed. And by a little bit, I mean like less than a teaspoon that was left in my grinder. It was a very expensive mistake for the hefty fine that I had to pay, for the trauma of being locked away for 7 nights and 8 days, for the experiences that I had, the memories that I made, the people that I met, the conversations that changed me, the love that I felt from my partner, from my family, from my close personal friends through the process, and for the integration and the healing journey after. That has been one of the most intense experiences of my life. It's a very fascinating thing to speak about the prison system and criminal justice and politics and inmates and all these words we throw around. But if anyone listening has been in a similar position as me, or maybe even had it much, much worse, you understand that it's very different to be on the inside. You understand the toll that it takes on a person's mind to be in captivity, to be tucked away from the rest of humanity, to be observed like you are in a zoo or a fish tank, which is what I called our cell. I literally was like, oh, we're in a fish tank, because the walls were glass and everyone could see in. There's nothing like being caged for any amount of time. Mine was a very short amount of time compared to many, many people. Many people who did the same thing as me, having a little weed in their grinder or in their pocket, being caught by the wrong cop, specifically people of color in the States who are systemically and racially discriminated against. Even in the process, I remember thinking, this is teaching me so much. This is opening my heart in ways that I hasn't been open before. This is opening my eyes in ways that they haven't been open before. I flew into Bali, Indonesia, and my bag was flagged because of my grinder. And they went through everything, triple-checked all the things. All of the stuff in our bags had to be gone through. It was very stressful, although the people were very kind. Everyone in Bali is very kind, truly, at heart. And even after my experiences, I could still say that. I was treated with a lot of respect, and I'm grateful for that, because I know that things could have been very different for me. After everything was gone through, we were taken to the customs station outside of the airport, driven there. Had to fill out paperwork, get my pictures taken. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is a dream. I'm going to wake up from this. Like, there's no way this is happening, you know? I had flown with my grinder to many countries and never been stopped or never had any issues. And having just spent time in Thailand, where cannabis is not only legalized, but also widely available, it was a shock to the system to land in a place that was so strict, where all drugs are considered narcotics. I might as well have been bringing in a kilo of heroin. And so after a full day of questioning and getting my photos taken and all the things we had to do, they told my partner to leave and that they were taking me. And I stood up to 5 grown-ass men and said, absolutely not. And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not separating us. And I stood my ground for several minutes until they finally agreed to bring Philip in the car with us and drive to the police station. This is after 12 hours of being questioned, because they are typically under the impression that anyone coming into the country, even with a tiny bit of weed, is a drug mule, bringing cannabis to the dealers there, to the cartels there. And so my passport was taken, my phone was taken, everything was gone through to make sure that I'm not, bringing weed to somebody that's going to sample it and send me back for more. It was a very interesting experience to go from 1 minute being a human in an airport to being a criminal with no rights and no voice. Because once we got to the police station where we were going to be kept, well, I was going to be kept. Philip was clean. He was fine. And I'm so grateful that he was, because he was my lifeline on the other side. If I had not had him on the other side for me, I genuinely don't know what would have happened. I would probably still be lost in this system somewhere, to be honest. I'm still like, wow, I'm really telling this story. I'm sharing it. It's crazy. It feels good to talk about it. There's been times when I've talked about it and it's been just a little too much for me. My nervous system starts to feel tired and dysregulated, but I feel really calm right now. So I'm grateful for you sharing this space with me. And so we drive to the station, and I don't know what's going to happen. They're not telling me anything. I don't know if I'm just staying overnight. I don't know if I get to go home now. I don't know if I have to pay somebody off. Like, I'm thinking through all of the options, you know? And we get to the police station. I'm assigned a lawyer. I'm assigned a translator who is such a kind woman. She grounded me so much in a time when I was feeling incredibly dysregulated and unsafe. I'm told what my options are. And regardless of what I choose to do, there's a $50,000 fine. That's in US dollars. That has to be paid within 5 days. Because I have to be held for 6 days. That's the law. Because that gives them enough time to make sure that I'm not a drug mule. And I can hardly believe what I'm hearing. I've never had $50,000 in a bank account. There's no time to start a GoFundMe. You know what I mean? Like, they need it in their account in several days' time. And so I start freaking out. This was the first point in time when I really started feeling the gravity of what was happening, because I just kept thinking, this is a dream. Like, I'm going to wake up from this. It was so disorienting. And when he said that number, I looked at him and I started crying, and I said, you have to get that price down. And he's like, well, I'll do my best. You know, I don't know if it's possible. And I said, I'm counting on you to get the price down, because that's impossible. Literally, I can't pay that. They call it a night. I say goodbye to my partner. I hold his face in my hands and I cry, not knowing when I'll see him again, if I'll see him again, what's gonna happen. I could be in here for years. I don't know. No one is telling me anything. I have a very beautiful and long-standing relationship with cannabis as a plant, as a tool, as a medicine, as a consciousness. Santa Maria. She's been a constant support in my life for many years, for my mental health, for my creativity, for my sleep. There have been months where I haven't touched it, and periods of time where I've smoked every day. It depends on the season you're in, why you're connecting, what you need to connect for. Especially for people that are neurodivergent, it can be an incredibly grounding tool. I'm not recommending it for everyone who's neurodivergent, or even for every person. But for me, I've found a very beautiful relationship with cannabis. And so now to be in this situation, it's like we're having all of this fuss over a plant. Okay, albeit a wonderful and powerful plant, but a plant. That the worst thing that happens if you smoke is you fall asleep. The difference between something like weed versus alcohol or cocaine and things that are more normalized in society that have devastating and lifelong effects on the brain, on the body, on the memory, versus something like cannabis. And if you haven't smoked and you don't really understand cannabis, that's okay. You don't have to. Just understand that you can have very different relationships with it, not just being a couch potato and watching TV all day with a stereotypical stoner vibe, right? That is not true for everyone. It can be, but it definitely doesn't have to be. And through conscious cultivation of your relationship with a plant, you can form something very powerful that helps you to understand yourself and the world in a way that is so unique and so profound. And that's what my relationship has been for many years. And so after my meeting with the lawyer, I was put into a room with 2 other women who I had no idea by the end of the week would be fast friends. They were both 21 years old. One of them who also flew in from Thailand with cannabis, and one from Seattle, both places in which cannabis is legalized. These were my new roommates, and this was our new room. Sleeping on the floor on a mat that smelled like 1,000 footballers had slept on it. I was allowed my toothbrush, toothpaste, my journal, which I was very lucky to get that, and Philip's watch that he gave me right before I went in so that I would be able to tell the time. I slept with that watch in my hand every single night while I laid on the floor in the freezing room trying to sleep. The 2 women that I was with were so sweet, so kind. One of them is English speaking, one of them is French speaking, and was learning English while we were in jail, who also taught me all of the colors to say in French. So my time there was definitely not a waste. It was very educational. And the time just got more and more weird from there. There was a lot of hurry up and wait. There were a lot of assignments and appointments and investigators and interrogations and appearing before the chief of police and psychiatry appointments. I mean, it was a whole journey, which led me to the end of the week, being able to be released on the 8th day on a full moon. So all that I knew at that time was that I had to stay for 6 days, but after that, I would either get released or I would be sent to jail and be there for like a while, months, till January potentially. This was September, so I was not about to let that happen, but I still had no idea what to do about the money. I knew it was impossible to try to scrape it together from the inside of the jail. Philip was outside and he could do some things, but there wasn't enough time. And so my lawyer negotiated the fee from $50,000 down to $30,000. Better, but still insane. And so a very, very kind and wonderful couple that will remain nameless offered to pay my fine for me and told me that I could take the time I needed to pay them back. And I hit the floor. I cried my eyes out, and I will be forever grateful for that and the way that that love gave me my freedom. It gave me the chance to go out and continue living my life. Like, without them being there, I don't know what would have happened. And I was so keenly aware of everyone else in my situation that does not have someone like that in their corner. Someone that could step up and say, I've got it. And that the combined joy and grief that came with this gift was so deeply profound. I will never forget that. I have been paying them back since the day I got out of jail, and I will continue to be paying them for some time. The things that I missed the most while I was inside, while I was in the clink, I can say that now. Fresh air. The people in charge of this place in Bali, they smoke cigarettes constantly. They chain smoke and they smoke vapes like on a necklace around their neck. So it's never ending. And the room that we were staying in, the guard who was always in there with us was also chain smoking. So the whole week we were breathing in secondhand smoke and vape smoke from everyone. So fresh air, sunlight on my skin. Ooh, that was a huge one. That was so hard for me. I'm such a little like lizard when it comes to wanting to be in the sun. I love it. I love it. I love it on my skin. It feels so good. The right time of day, you know, you gotta watch out for the UV. But being without sunshine and fresh air and being disconnected from the grass, the ground, not getting to touch like flowers and trees. There was one stray cat that would wander in sometimes that was white. And sometimes we'd try to like get her to come to us so we could pet her. Sometimes she would, but most of the time she's just looking for food. I really missed that, the physical touch of things, of animals, of people, of nature. Hugs from my partner, being able to have like a brush and being able to take a shower. Ooh, I only had one shower in a week, and it was with a bucket over the toilet. So it was really not not the same as a hot shower. And you better believe that when I got out of this experience, I took a shower for an hour. I'm sorry if that seems like a waste of water. I know that it is, but it was so necessary. It was so necessary. And it was like an otherworldly experience for me. I've never had a shower like that in my life. I will never not be grateful for every shower that I take after being deprived of one. I didn't miss my phone, which was an interesting realization to me. I did miss being able to hear my friends' voices, though, on voice memos, or see my best friend text me and my face lights up because it's her name, you know. All of that was gone. And very strange to have a full week of no social media, no texting, no notifications, nothing. It makes you very aware, very alert, and really shows you what matters, which are things like your freedom, your happiness, your state of mind. If I had not done the work on myself that I have done, this would have been a very different experience for me. There were moments when I was very close to breaking because of the way that we were, being treated, and which we were always treated fine in the grand scheme of things, but like we were always fed, we always had water, we could always, be taken to the bathroom. That kind of thing was fine. But the energetics of your environment are, you are a criminal. You have no rights. You are in a cage. And so that experience alone changes something in you, and it shifts something in your perception of the world, in your perception of even the way you experience life, your ego, like all of it is different. And even though I had moments where I felt like I couldn't stop crying, I feel like I was able to keep my head above water and know that this was all for something bigger than me, even while I was in the middle of the process. I knew. I don't believe in coincidences. I do believe in synchronicities. I don't believe things happen on accident. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And so putting all of that together and knowing that I am here with intention, whatever that is, maybe doesn't make sense yet, but there's a reason for this. There's a bigger picture for this. And even in the middle of the storm, looking back, I'm so proud of myself that I could hold that mentality for myself and for the other women that I was with, keeping our heads held high, staying firm with our boundaries. There was one moment where they wanted to move the female prisoners into the smaller room where the male prisoners were. And because we were separated, and I looked at the guard and I said, absolutely not. And he looked at me like, excuse me? And there were several reasons for me not wanting us to be moved, but the primary one was there is no reason for us to move. It was this new guard that we had never seen before who came in and just started calling shots, and we were able to stand up even to him and say, we're not doing that. He actually listened to us and was like, okay, and left us there. And if we hadn't said something, we would have been moved into a very uncomfortable situation. Another one of my favorite experiences and reasons that confirmed the fact that I knew I was supposed to be there in that moment were the guards that I met who had questions about cannabis, about mushrooms, about the plants, about the mind, about the brain, about the body, things that I actually knew the answer to because of my personal and lived experiences. This country does not celebrate the plants and their support for our mental health in the same way that we who have found support in our mental health through plants do. And it's very misunderstood. It's very taboo. No one talks about it. And they are not given any education around the benefits of having a relationship with a plant like cannabis. And so they came to me with questions like, what does it feel like when you smoke? I'm like, oh, have you never smoked before? Of course not. No, but I'm curious what it's like for you. Well, I feel grounded. I feel centered. My brain feels calm. Sometimes I feel motivated. I'm like jumping up, cleaning the dishes, washing the floors. Like sometimes I'm more settled in my body and I'm creating with my hands. I'm painting, I'm sculpting, I'm creating music, and I'm flowing with my day. I'm smiling at every stranger. I'm being guided from synchronicity into synchronicity into synchronicity. I'm in my flow state. Can I get there sober? 100%. Do I get there sober regularly? Yeah. Can I also get there with cannabis? Yes. How beautiful, right? And they're looking at me like, seriously? Like their whole world is shattering behind their eyes. This propaganda that they've believed about these substances, that they've been taught by their superiors, that they've been taught by officials, by their own government, by the world news, by all the things, right? This has been going on a long time. They can't believe the words I'm saying, but they see the spark in the way that I'm speaking about this. And they ask me what I do with my time, and I tell them about my life and that I make music, and before I know it, my music is playing through the entire police station. I never thought that I'd be able to say that phrase, but there I was, sitting on the ground with my greasy hair, haven't showered in a week. I'm cold. They kept the AC on 16 degrees Celsius, freezing. And we spent a lot of nights shivering because we were so cold, or unable to sleep because we were genuinely so cold. Another one of my favorite moments was a random act of kindness showed to me by a guard. A woman stopped by the prison with a basket of fruit on her head. And one of the guards looked at me and motioned for me to come out of the cell, and I stepped out of the cell into the foyer and was like, oh my God, I'm out of the cell. I couldn't believe it. And he told me to pick a piece of fruit and that he would pay for it for me. And I picked a piece of watermelon from her head basket and said thank you, and went back inside my little cell and sat down and ate that watermelon, and it was the best thing I've ever had. So Philip is on the other side of the jail. He's able to come every day and check on me, but we are not really allowed to talk. So for a couple of minutes, we're allowed to say a few words, and that usually consisted of, did you get a chance to tell my parents? How are they? Is everyone okay? You know, kind of thing. And him informing me that someone was going to be able to pay my fine, and him bringing me fresh papaya, which I shared with the other girls and also the other inmates in the men's cell that were really grateful to receive random pieces of fruit from me. They were very kind, the men. A lot of them had smuggled cocaine and heroin, and I found myself not judging them for it, but simply wondering why they had to. because this country is very poor. And it's very wealthy in the sense of, tourism and foreign people who have moved there, who own properties and investments there, who are making lots of money. But a lot of that money does not go back to the local economy at all. And these people are facing rising prices, housing crisis, unable to live in the cities they were born in that were once villages that are now bustling towns, so chaotic and so stressful with tourists that they can't even live regularly. And this is happening all over the world. It's happening here in Mexico as well. It's happening in a lot of developing countries, and it's hard to escape it. Understanding it gives you such a deeper appreciation for what you have, but also insight into how difficult it is to live in situations like this when you are a local native person to the land, indigenous to the land, and you are being forced out of your home, which is the story of colonization all over the world, who would most likely go away for many, many years in overcrowded Indonesian prisons, which all of them are across the country, very, very overpopulated and horrible conditions. Of course, I can't speak for all of them and all of the men's intentions, but for the majority of them, they were just dads, just people, just brothers that were making drug deals with certain people who were going to pay them a lot of money, And you wonder if you would do the same thing in the same situation. Would you do something different? Or are they just a reflection of us, of humanity, at our greatest time of need, when you make irrational decisions to feed your family, to keep yourself afloat, to be able to stay in your homeland and afford it? One of my favorite and most intimate memories was when one of the women that I was with in the jail, she was raised Muslim, and one of the men on the other side of the glass was also Muslim and was praying on his prayer mat every couple of hours and singing from the pages of the Quran. And she asked him in Arabic to pray for us. He sang prayers from the Quran and asked for God's protection and guidance around us. He asked our names and incorporated them into the prayer, which was so beautiful and so touching. And it's one of the only parts of the story I think that's actually made me feel emotional, because I think about him and I wonder where he went, what happened next. The next day he was escorted out of jail and we didn't even get to say goodbye. So I just send him love wherever he is. I hope he remembers us and is blessed for how much he blessed us. On a lighter note, another of my favorite memories was talking with the woman who was from France and helping her prepare for an interview as a cook in English. So I was the interviewer, the restaurant owner, hiring her potentially to be my head chef, and she practiced her responses in English and did a beautiful job. I've never been more grateful for my partner than I was in that week, and ever since. I think it took our relationship to a whole new level of having to be there for each other, even when it was terrifying, especially when it was terrifying. And being able to feel his presence and feel his support from a distance was something I'll never forget. Another one about Philip that I loved was every day, even though we weren't allowed to talk hardly or much less touch or spend time together, was that he would bring me flowers from the tree outside. Even though I couldn't be out in nature, he brought a little bit of nature to me. And I would hold on to that flower all day, smell it until it didn't smell anymore, like a flower. And the next day after this one was crumpled, I would get another one. So on the 8th and final day, when I had fingers crossed that I would be released and not have to go to actual prison for many months, the motion passed that I would be released, that I was not a drug mule, and that I could have my passport and my phone and my backpack and all my stuff that had been kept, and I could leave. So from 1 minute to the next, I'm a criminal in a cage. And the next minute, I'm being handed my passport, my phone, and the door is being opened for me. Here you go, Miss Rushlow. And I'm walking outside. The cognitive dissonance that comes from an experience like this is insane. I don't even have words for it. I have words for everything. I can't even describe to you what that felt like. It felt like I walked out a different person. It felt like I was breathing the air for the first time. And I remember turning around and looking at the building, and I could see through the tinted glass all of the men that had been in prison with me on the other side. And I waved to them, and they waved to me. And at first, I felt guilty because I was going and they were staying. And then I realized that they were so happy for me to be walking free, to be walking out. That makes me emotional to think about them. At first, I felt guilty for my freedom, looking back at them, not knowing what their fate would be, but I could feel their excitement for me. They were waving enthusiastically, so happy that I had made it. As I drove away, I got to see the sunset and the full moon coming in the sky at the same time. The moon was bigger than I think I've ever seen it, and the sunset was incredible. I got to the place I was staying and put all my bags down, still in shock, disbelief, dysregulation, not even fully present in my body remotely. And I went outside barefoot and I put my feet in the grass. And I touched the trees. And I took a shower for a very long time. Started to feel a little bit like a human again. And then I ordered Greek food. A comfort meal for me. Part of my ancestry is Greek, from the Aegean island of Rhodes. So Greek food, Mediterranean food, has a very special place in my heart and my DNA. It's very grounding. I turned on the TV and I sat there with my food on the bed, unable to even eat, unable to do anything. I hadn't even cried at this point in many days. And with the most perfect timing, I heard it start to rain outside. And I got up with a reckless abandon and ran outside to the grass, and I planted my feet in the dirt, and I looked up at the sky and I laughed. And then I cried. And I cried so well. I cried so hard, but also so good, because it was a release that my body was craving so much from being so pent up all week and not feeling safe to release the emotions that were stored in my body. It was like a volcano erupted. I did not sleep well that night. I was having dreams of being in jail and guards coming in and people needing things from me, and I was having constant lucid dreams of guards coming into my room and arresting me again. And needless to say, my subconscious was not feeling very safe The next day, I was reunited with my partner. And 2 days after that, I had previously, past Bailey, had booked future Bailey a hair appointment on that day to dye my hair back to my natural color, my brunette color. I had been blonde for 3 years. And it was on the fall equinox, September 21st, which felt very timely and it was a very beautiful experience that I had already had this planned for myself. Like, almost like a part of me knew that I would need it. And oh, did I need it? Having someone touch my hair, touch my head, color my hair, show me so much care and attention and love, and return me to my roots, to my natural hair color for the first time in many years was a spiritual experience. To this day, I still look twice when I see the lights flashing from a cop car. Certain smells or certain things I'll see remind me what it felt like to be in a cage. I can say wholeheartedly that I appreciate my life and my freedom more than I ever have. The rain never goes unnoticed. The sunshine on my skin is felt fully. A deep breath of fresh air is like heaven. And when I hear someone speak Arabic, it makes me think of the man who prayed for me, whose name I will never know. It makes me think of the guards who questioned me, who investigated me, who interrogated me. I wonder if they will ever find freedom. Because one thing that this experience taught me for sure was that if we were in a fish tank, not by choice, everyone else in this system by choice who was working in these jobs and working in these buildings, 9 to 5, smoking indoors, never being in nature, just trying to work up the corporate ladder of recognition and honor and praise and authority and superiority and putting people through the criminal justice system, they are in a fish tank too, but they chose to be there. And every month that I send money to the wonderful people who bought my freedom, literally, I send it to them with love and with intention and with hopes that this money will overflow in their lives, that they will be blessed with so much abundance for their generosity and their care, for helping me have the opportunity to continue living my life freely, sitting here in my home at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, recording this episode for you to listen to while we sit around the fire and swap stories. That is something that I will never take for granted. I hope that you have a few takeaways from this story, and that it's not just Bailey went to jail, but truly don't gloss over the things that I shared here. Take them with you. Remember them, share them, and please do not travel with cannabis internationally. Don't think you can get away with it. It's not worth it. Even if you can, because maybe you have before, why risk it? If you have the chance of experiencing anything that I just did, much less worse. I'll tell you another cautionary tale quickly of a guy that I met at the end of my journey who had been in the prison system for several months. He flew in to Bali from Argentina months before me and had been stuck there this whole time because he flew in with 2 grams of weed, which is like 2 tablespoons of weed basically, from Argentina where it's legal. And he even had a medical marijuana card. He had a prescription from a doctor to be able to legally use cannabis in a therapeutic way. He was detained for months behind bars. And I think it's very different for guys in the system versus women as well. I noticed that the guys were treated much worse and much different than we were. And on one hand, I'm grateful for how we were treated. And on the other hand, it made me very sad and very sick to see the difference based on our gender and the degradation toward the men in this scary and vulnerable situation. This guy also flew in with a bag of gummies, in case you're thinking, well, I will just bring edibles. They don't have the system to weigh what is THC versus what is the rest of the gummy, because most gummies are just sugar and gelatin, right? So rather than being able to separate that and say, oh, they only brought on this much THC, they weigh the whole bag and say, oh, you brought in 500 grams or a kilo of cannabis, right? That's a very different thing. So please do not risk it. I'm just asking you now, if you're ever in this situation, remember my words, may they haunt you. Not really, but in this situation, yes. And if you can't travel without having weed with you, then that's probably an indication that you should look at your consumption and figure out ways that you can go without it for periods of time. Because nothing is meant to be consumed every day, all the time. Maybe this is a indication to you of where you're at in your cannabis journey. Whether that's destigmatizing it further, opening your awareness to it and the beauty of it, or maybe working on enhancing the authenticity and the intention of your relationship to it. I'm so grateful that I had this experience, that it all worked out the way that it did, that it was so scary and so jarring, that it woke me up to even deeper empathy, deeper resilience, and an awareness about myself and my mind and my nervous system and how strong they are in a way that I might never have been aware of before, to this depth. I'll never forget my time there, the people that I met, the things I did. Sounds like I'm telling you about going to camp or something. I'll never forget my time there. But it really was one of the most intense initiations of my life. I'm grateful to be able to share it with you in this capacity. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for listening to this wild, wild story. I appreciate it. I felt like you were really here with me. And if this story touched you, I would love to hear from you about it. You can send me an email at thecosmicnomadpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send me a message on Instagram. You know, I'm not telling this story because I want pity or drama or to be seen as anything other than human. I'm telling this story because it changed me. And because stories like this, the messy ones, the complicated ones, the multi-layered ones, the ones where we don't look so good, so pretty, so shiny, the ones where maybe we don't look like the hero, they deserve to be held too. I walked out of that jail a different person, and every step since then has been a way of returning to myself and to a balanced and a regulated nervous system. This experience brought me face to face with so many things and so many aspects of myself. I'm reminded of the words from the Quran that say, "Surely with hardship comes ease." And maybe this story is part of my ease because I survived and now I get to share it in my own words. I feel like I'm looking around the fire at each one of you, and you're like nodding and understanding, and the fire is kind of dim now, and the stars and the crescent moon are looking really nice, really shiny. And we're all ready to pull out the guitar and sing something fun, lift the mood again. That's a great campfire vibe. sing a little John Denver, you know? I hope that the reflection of this story leads you closer to yourself in some way. That maybe you appreciate the rain a little bit more, or the sunlight when it touches your skin. That you think of the people who don't get to experience that. That you live your life big and bold in the name of every person that doesn't get the chance to. No more playing small. Live big, live bright, live victoriously in your freedom. You have so much freedom. Do something with it that is profound and deeply authentic and super fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. And if today's episode spoke to something in you, please feel free to share it with a friend who you think would also resonate, or leave a review. It helps more than you know. And if you want to support the podcast and go deeper into the work that I'm sharing, you can now join me on Patreon. Each month, I offer guided meditations, private voice notes, and little glimpses behind the scenes of my creative world. It's a really beautiful way to stay connected. So I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode, and until then, open heart, open mind, stay curious.